Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Can We Talk About It podcast. Today, I want to talk about KB and Edmund from Love is Blind, and I have quite an unpopular opinion. Everyone is talking about KB as if she is just so emotionally intelligent and she's so self-aware, and they're sort of pitying Edmund and mocking him. And here's my thing. It's not that I don't think that he deserves some of the backlash that he's getting. It's not that I don't think that, perhaps this was not the appropriate show for him with his specific developmental needs. It's not that I don't think that he also has some severe issues and probably is not ready for a relationship. And I don't know that he ever will be given his developmental concerns. But what I don't like is how everyone is painting KB out to be sort of this innocent figure who was, too gracious and too kind and too understanding of Edmund. And it's all because she articulates herself better than Edmund can. And this often happens with people. She also has the halo effect, which is when someone's beautiful, when someone's pretty, we give them the benefit of the doubt. We tend to, let them slide. We give them more grace. And that is exactly what has happened with KB. She is simply more articulate than Edmund. It doesn't mean that she's ready for a relationship or necessarily the good one, so to speak, in this relationship. And I'm going to explain to you guys why. So recently she was on the Hardly Initiated podcast, and she shared her history, her dating history, and she also shared a little bit more about her experience on Love is Blind. And the more I listened to that interview, the more I realized that she definitely came on this show wanting a relationship and wanting marriage, but she knew she wasn't going to get that with Edmund, and she continued anyway. If KB is indeed as emotionally intelligent, as self-aware, and as perceptive as everyone says she is, then she would have heard in the tone of Edmund's voice that something was wrong with this man. I, as a teacher of 12 years, can tell you that whenever I hear kids sounding like this and they can't articulate or form sentences or thoughts clearly, I can tell you that I'm like, oh no, there's something developmentally awry with this kid. And the fact that she sat there and listened to this man talk, and didn't decide to cut him off and didn't decide to move on, tells me that she knew exactly what she was doing, and she isn't as innocent as we'd like to believe. When you listen to Edmund talk, he has a hard time forming one thought. He has a hard time speaking a complete thought in a sentence. You often hear him say things multiple times in multiple different ways. And if you're not accustomed to listening to this kind of speak, it can be very confusing. And even the guys on Hardly Initiated had a hard time following him and following what he was saying. It's almost like talking to a 15-year-old boy. And maybe even younger, to be honest, because I work with 15-year-old boys. And so we're sitting here watching KB talk about him as if he is developmentally a grown man. And she knew good and well in her heart and soul that he was not. And that to me is extremely problematic. It's extremely problematic. And maybe the producer said, hey, just give him a chance, go to the altar. But this whole like, oh, I loved him talk. Girl, how did you love somebody with the emotional capacity of an 11-year-old? And I don't say that in a way to like demean Edmund, but that's a real question, right? How did you love someone who really struggles to share thoughts and ideas and who struggles to really connect, at least from what we saw on television? How? And expecting us as viewers to go, oh, he's on the same level as you emotionally. I find it to be problematic that she continued in this relationship with him. I really do. She treats him like a child. And to me, when a woman does that, she's not as self-aware as she thinks she is. When you find yourself saying, oh, that's my baby, that's my love, that's my thing, you're lying. You're you genuinely find that kind of developmental delay attractive, which means you got exactly what you deserved. So there's a lot of conversation about, oh, he's this, he's that, Edmund. And don't get me wrong, like Edmund needs support. I think he needs more practice sharing his feelings. You can tell that he uses ChatGPT in his captions for Instagram. So he definitely needs some more support in learning how to communicate his thoughts clearly. He probably needs some, I'm glad he's in therapy. I don't know if therapy is exactly what he needs. I think what he needs is more education in how to communicate his thoughts in a linear fashion. So all of that to say, this idea that KB was like this angel who really just did Edmund a favor, and oh, she was just so smart and so emotionally aware to deal with him. I'm not buying it. I actually find it a little bit repulsive. And I found even that interview on Hardly Initiated to be unfair. It's very obvious like that because KB's very good looking. She's beautiful, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of guys are going to side with her. And I felt like they kind of mocked Edmund in that interview. And I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. And I know this is an unpopular opinion because KB is a fan favorite. A lot of people like KB. She comes across as like pretty girl. Even you had, people in the comments, oh, she's a baddie. Yeah, but she's a baddie without a brain. She is not as self-aware and as articulate as she thinks she is. Just up against Edmund, she looks like she is. Right. And even the way that she was answering some of the questions on Hardly Initiated, I was like, oh, you don't know either. When they asked her, what's her type? What's your type? And she couldn't hardly, athletic build. Like, okay, what do you like? What are you looking for specifically in a partner? Like, what do you think actually makes a man a good husband or a good partner? She couldn't tell you either. So I know this is a little bit of a, something that people don't really want to talk about with her because she is beautiful and she did the world a favor by, choosing Edmund long enough for us to be blessed with his, personality on television. But she is not ready for marriage either. Because even if let's say that Edmund is like the worst person in the world, which he isn't, but he's definitely not ready for marriage. If somebody can pull you out of your character like that, then you haven't healed. And I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say that. If you are willing to call somebody outside of their name like that, you haven't healed either. And what that told me, low key, you guys, is that she's used to dealing with a certain kind of man who doesn't have the strong character. And so this is how she acts. Like she says she wants, marriage and she wants a family. I want a Southern man. A Southern man's not interested in you because you are, my dear, you are not sophisticated enough for a Southern man in your speech, in your conduct, and in your thought process. And I know this is so, people are not going to like this, but it's true. In my opinion, it is true. That doesn't mean she's not beautiful. That doesn't mean that she can't work on it, but she has work to do too. This idea that she's ready-made and ready for a man and ready for marriage, I'm going to go ahead and say no on her. I'm going to go ahead and say that she's not ready and that she still has work to do in her relationship. So anyway, you guys, that's what I think about KB and Edmund. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I don't care if you disagree. You just have to do so respectfully. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe on this video. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.